Hello, I'm RevloGM, and welcome back to our Making Vox Machina characters in Pathfinder 2nd Edition series. That's a bit of a mouthful. We're very close to the end now, as we are on the final mainline-ish member, Pike. Pike Trickfoot is a gnome like Scanlan and a cleric like, well, no one. She was raised in Restaurant by her great-great-grandfather Wilhand Trickfoot, the first of his family, descended, we think, from deep gnomes, to break the cycle of brigandry and thievery and instead become a devout follower of Sevenray, changed to the Everlight for the show. The rest of the family did too, up to and including Pike. What about the rest of Pike's family? Well, I don't think we know, beyond her dad leaving for Wenandir? Pike is a childhood friend of Grog, saving him when he was nearly killed by the herd of storms from protecting Wilhand, and she also, and I only learned about this on starting the video, used to have black hair with a purple streak. Why is it white? Well, we will have to find out in part 2 of this video. Subscribe for that. Pike is a soft-spoken soul, sometimes, and incredibly loud and chaotic at others. It really depends on the mood and the company. She can be downing drinks with the rest of Vox Machina one moment, but offering prayers and giving advice to followers of Serenray the next. She is something of a moral compass for Vox Machina, sometimes described as the mum, in different ways to Keyleth being a moral compass, and is often the one that people will go to for advice or just to talk something out. They also seem to tend to be more honest around her. When she's around, anyway. She has some struggles with her more violent side from time to time, which we'll get to, I'm sure, but that'll be in later episodes of the series. Pike is not quite a founding member of Vox Machina, joining them to help with their search for Grog and adventuring with them from there onwards, though on and off in certain situations. So who plays her? Well, that would be Ashley Johnson. Possibly the biggest name, at least mainstream-wise, at least at time of the campaign starting. All the cast, of course, very out there now. She was a child actor in the sitcom Growing Pains as Chrissy Seaver, and continued acting as she grew up. She plays Amber Ahmed in The Killing and Patterson in Blindspot. That'll come up again later. And she's done some voice acting and mocap work too. Ellie in The Last of Us being the most significant one, which she's won BAFTAs for, but was also the voice of Terra in Teen Titans and Teen Titans Go, Gwen Tennyson in Ben 10, and Jinmei from Super Robot Monkey Team Hyperforce Go. That one might just be for me. She's also in The Avengers as Beth the Waitress, if you remember that scene, with the radio and Wi-Fi and... Anyway, she's also the president of Critical Role's charity branch, the Critical Role Foundation, and has appeared in many shows on Geek and Sundry, at some point mentioning the home game that she played into Felicia Day, so there we go. She also sings and plays a number of instruments, including piano and cello, and that's enough of that. Back to Pike. Pike is often run by Matt or is elsewhere in the game, as Blind Spot, which was filmed in New York, was going on for all of the first campaign, so that's why we get less Pike overall. Okay, on to Pike stuff proper. We're going to start with 5e, skip to here, somewhere, if you just want to get to the Pathfinder stuff. Pike is a gnome. She is, we think, descended from deep gnomes, but doesn't appear to have any of the features as such, and isn't affected by like sunlight, so it's clearly not a direct ancestry. So just a gnome for now, I guess. She's a cleric and has the sailor background, even if we aren't technically at the sailing bit yet. Again, remember this started as a Pathfinder game before becoming a 5e game, so it started as it was many things before it became a 5e game, and I think they chose the backgrounds when they got to 5e for what they are, so. We're not at the sailing bit when they actually made these characters, but for our purposes we are at the sailing bit, and we'll kind of have to re-explain how that works a little later. So we get our ability score increase, increasing our intelligence score by 2. Assumably something else by 1, but again we don't really have that sub-race for Pike, so it's hard to say for sure. Gnomes age and mature about the same age as humans, but live longer. Hard to say exactly to what we're paying attention to that with the 5e stuff being in Exandria, and tend to be good in alignment. And size, they're 3 to 4 feet tall, their size is small, which does impact their walking speed, making it 25 feet rather than the standard 30. They have dark vision. You can see dim light within 60 feet, see for bright light, and in darkness within a dim light. No colours, only grey. You get Gnome Cunning, you have advantage on Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma saving throws against magic. And languages, speak, read, and write Common and Gnomish. Gnomish? Now she also has Undercommon and Dwarvish, not quite sure where they're from, might be little elements of the Underdark, Deep Gnome stuff coming through, hard to say for sure, but she has those languages. From Sailor, she has proficiency in Athletics and Perception, and tool proficiencies in Navigator's Tools and Water Vehicles, though that's not listed on the character sheet. They don't get any languages either from Sailor, so not quite sure where those come from. They also have the ship's passage feature, technically, but like with all of the abilities, they don't really seem to be being used for the most part. And then Cleric. Hit points is 1d8 per Cleric level, you know how that starts. Proficiencies, we have light armor, medium armor and shields, all simple weapons, no tools. Wisdom and Charisma are the saving throws, and you choose 2 skills from History, Insight, Medicine, Persuasion and Religion. She chooses Religion, and only seems to have 3 on the character sheet to level 9, so I'm not quite sure what's happened there. Maybe we'll change to level 10, but she seems to be missing a skill right now. As a cleric at first level you also get spellcasting, which you get your cantrips and you get your spell slots. Pike has 3 cantrips at first level and a number of spells equal to her level plus her wisdom modifier, which is 5. But the most important thing is 2 spell slots, because that's how many of those first level spells can actually be cast. Wisdom is of course the spellcasting ability, and you can ritual cast things as well. The other element you get at first level as a cleric is your divine domain. Again, Pike starts in the life domain here, but then pivots to war after something important happens, which we will get to next time, but we're just going to start with war to simplify things just a little bit. This gives her the bonus proficiencies of martial weapons and heavy armor, which is pretty solid, and War Priest, which is from first level. Your god delivers bolts of inspiration to you while you are engaged in battle. When you use the attack action, you can make an additional weapon attack as a bonus action, and you can use this feature a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier with a minimum of once. And you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So this is like extra attack, but just not all the time. But 4 times already at first level is pretty solid. That's also not on the character sheet, but she has it either way, and I'm pretty sure it gets used at some point. For spells, she has Divine Favour and Shield of Faith from her War domain as first level. She has Thaumaturgy, Sacred Flame and Spare the Dying as her cantrips, and then Cure Wounds, Guiding Bolt and Healing Word as her additional first level spells. And there we go. Now we know at level 9 Pike doesn't appear to have taken any feats, so that's roughly 2 ability score improvements then, which means level 1 Pike likely has roughly these stats. Strength 13, Dex 11, Con 10, Intelligence 13, Wisdom of 18, Charisma of 12 at a guess. She additionally has plate armor and a shield or wall by the time we get to level 9, and again we're not going to make it too extra complicated by giving her light armor stuff now and then changing it over to heavy later, so we're just going to stick with all of that. So we're starting with AC 20, which is solid. Alright, on to Pathfinder then. We start with our gnome again. Hit points, we have 8 from our gnomish ancestry. We are small in size and also have a 25-foot movement speed, because that isn't dictated by size quite as much in Pathfinder. Our ability boosts and indeed floors, much like with Scanlan, with boost to Constitution and Charisma, a free boost which we will be putting in Wisdom, and a floor to Strength. For languages, we get Common, Fey and Gnomish, and additional languages equal to our Intelligence modifier. If it's positive, it's going to be +1, so we get a bunch to choose from. We're going to go with Sakroth, which is the Undercommon equivalent, because that seems to be where her ancient ancestry kind of lies. I'm going to have to get Dwarvish at some point in the future. We also get low light vision, which is you can see in dim light as though it's bright light, and you ignore the concealed condition due to dim light. It's not quite as powerful as dark vision, but it's still pretty good to have. For heritage, we've gone with Vivacious Gnome, as it said that Pike was good at healing from a young age, and this is you have an incredibly strong connection to the positive energy that flows through from the first world, making it harder to attack your life force with negative energy. You gain negative resistance equal to half your level with a minimum of 1, and when you have the doomed condition, the condition affects you as if its value is 1 lower than it actually is. So doomed 1 has no effect, and doomed 2 causes you to die, dying 3 and so on, which is pretty powerful because doomed really sucks. And as our ancestry feat, we've gone with Illusion Sense, which is your ancestors spent their days cloaked and cradled in illusions, and as a result, sensing illusion magic is second nature to you. You gain a +1 circumstance bonus to perception checks and will saves against illusions, and you come within 10 feet of an illusion that can be disbelieved. The GM rolls a secret check for you to disbelieve it, even if you don't spend an action to interact with said illusion. It kind of fits well with her ancestors being deep gnomes and some of them having kind of magic. I know it's not necessarily illusion magic, and then also from being around Scanlan a bunch, even though I know technically they haven't met yet, but I think it just kind of works as well as the others do anyway. Plus it's good mechanically for clerics as it's will and perception, which is all based on wisdom. For her background, we also have Sailor. You choose 2 attribute boosts, 1 must be Strength or Dex, and 1 is a free attribute boost. You're trained in the Athletics skill and the Sailing Lore skill, and you gain the Underwater Marauder skill feat, which is you've learned to fight underwater. You're not off guard while in water, and don't take the usual penalties for using bludgeoning or slashing melee weapons in water, which is niche for sure, but in times when it comes up, it could be very powerful. Okay, on to Cleric. Key ability is Wisdom, of course. Hit points 8 again, plus Con modifier. Perception, trained in Perception. Saving throws, trained in Fortitude, trained in Reflex, expert in Will saves. And then skills, we are trained in religion, trained in one skill determined by our choice of deity, which we'll come to, and trained in a number of additional skills equal to 2 plus intelligence modifier of 1, so that'll be 3. We're trained in simple weapons, trained in our favoured weapon of our deity, and if your deity's favoured weapon is uncommon, you also gain access to it, as it's not, and trained in unarmed attacks. Now our deity, as previously mentioned, is 7-ray. 7-ray comes from, in some extent, Pathfinder, so it means that we have a direct comparison here. We don't have to equate it, it just already exists. Their skill is medicine, so we've got that, and their weapon, interestingly, is the scimitar. So we're going to be making a pike that is slightly different to the Morningstar pike that we have in 5e. They also trained in unarmed attacks, like most people are. For defense, we are untrained in all armor, but the doctrine might alter this, as clerics can be priests with more of a focus on the magic and less on the combat. Obviously that's not pike, but just that's how it starts, and we are trained in our class DC and in spells. We start with 5 cantrips and 2 spell slots. So similar in a sense to how it works in 5e, but of course the thing you put in the slot is the thing you can cast. You've not got like 5 options and then you can cast 2 from those 5 options. But on top of that, we also have a divine font. Through your deity's blessing, you gain additional spells that can channel either life force, called vitality, or its counterforce, the void. When you prepare your spells each day, you can prepare additional heal or harm spells depending on your deity. For a 7-ray, unsurprisingly, it's just heal. And once you choose, you can't change your choice short of a divine intervention. Healing Font gives us 4 additional spell slots a day at our highest rank of cleric slots, and you can only prepare heal or harm in those slots, and level 5 increases to 5 slots, and at 15th level we gain 6 slots. So that means that there are 4 heals, and pretty powerful heals as well, that Pike has access to, and so doesn't have to put any actual spells to be heals. She can, but she doesn't have to. We also choose a doctrine. This is where you choose either Cloistered Cleric or War Priest. Considering Pike has an ability strip called War Priest, we can guess with which direction we're going to go with this one. There is technically a third option which you take in a slightly different way, which is like the Battle Harbinger, I think, which is very cool, but War Priest definitely fits what Pike is, I think. Doctrines give you a number of doctrines, and our first doctrine gives us access to light and medium armor, and expert proficiency in fortitude saves. You also gain the Shield Block General Feat, which is a reaction to reduce damage with a shield. It's very good. And if your deity's weapon is simple or an unarmed attack, you gain the Deadly Simplicity Feat, which increases the damage die that your weapon does. Pike's Scimitar is not a simple or unarmed attack weapon, so it doesn't have this though. And then at 13th level, you gain the Divine Defense class feature, and you also gain expert proficiency in light and medium armor. So no heavy armor for Pike just yet. We'll have to sort that out ourselves in a little bit. So she's going to have slightly less AC potentially than our 5e character, which might be a first. Shield Block we've talked about, I think, before, but maybe not in these videos. I'm not entirely sure actually if anyone else uses shield apart from Pike. This is if you raise your shield, which is an action on your turn, you can then spend a reaction where you take physical damage to use your shield's hardness and block some of that damage. If you block too much, you do break your shield, but it can be very good at reducing damage if you've got a powerful shield, or as a last resort because you're going to go down otherwise. You also choose your deity. Your deity gives you Edict and Anathema. Edicts are things you strive towards, and Anathema are things that if you do, you're likely to start losing some of your magical powers. It's a thing that was a very big deal in old school, and is utilised less in 5e and things, apart from with like paladins, but it's a little bit more prevalent with Pathfinder. 7-ray's edicts are to protect allies, provide aid to the sick and wounded, seek and allow redemption, and Anathema is to create undead, lie, deny a repentant creature an opportunity for redemption, and fail to strike down evil. Divine attributes, for when they are relevant, are Constitution and Wisdom. Divine Font is Healing. Sanctification is you can choose Holy, which we'll come back to. Divine Skill is Medicine. Divine Weapon or Favoured Weapon is Scimitar. And they have the domains of Fire, Healing, Sun, and Truth. Would probably go with Healing. The cleric spells that they also grant are Breathe Fire, Fireball, and Wall of Fire. Very fire related. And then finally we have Sanctification, which I can't remember if it was in before the remaster or not. I think it might be new, or the option might have changed. Let me know in the comments. But depending on your deity, their sanctification can make you holy or unholy. So for 7-ray, holy. This gives you the holy or unholy trait, which commits you to one side of a struggle over the souls of the planes and may be referenced in other abilities. If you can be holy or unholy, according to your deity, you can make that choice. And if you must be holy or unholy, you gain the trait automatically. If you gain the opposing trait in some way, you lose the previous trait until you complete an atonement ritual. 7-ray sanctification can be holy. Pike is definitely holy. That's 100% a thing that she would have. And what that does is it means that fighting against certain enemies, I believe you can do more damage to them because you're holy, they're unholy, but likewise they'll do more damage back to you because you're on two sides of this battle. So there we are. We're nearly done with all of this. We just got to go through all the numbers now. So for our attributes for Pathfinder, we have a +1 to strength, +1 to con, +4 to wisdom, 0 to dex, +1 to intelligence, and +2 to charisma. Our cleric DC is at a 17, our perception at a +7, our athletics is trained to +2, diplomacy to +5, sailing law to +4, medicine to +7, occultism to +4, religion to +7, and society to +4. We have an AC presently of 17 from a breastplate and a steel shield, rising it to 19 because we can't have heavy armor just yet. And we have a scimitar, which is hit on +4, 1d6 +1 slashing damage. With the forceful and sweep traits, they're not going to come up very much for Pike though. Our saving throws are +6 for fortitude at expert, +3 for reflex trained, and +9 for will, which is an expert as well, which is very good. So for the spells, we have a few cantrips. We have Divine Lance, which is 2 actions, spell attack for 2d4 points of spirit damage, or double on a crit. You just fire a beam of divine energy and make a ranged spell attack against the target's AC. Pretty solid, pretty standard kind of thing. And it is a sanctified attack, which makes sense. Pike is a sanctified person. Guidance is another cantrip, which is concentrate, and its duration to the start of your next turn. You target one creature, and you ask for the guidance of supernatural entities, in this case Serenway, granting a +1 status bonus to an attack roll, perception check, saving throw, or skill check the target attempts before the duration ends. The target chooses which roll to use it on before rolling, and if they use the bonus, the spell ends. And either way, they are then immune for 1 hour. Just a classic slight boost kind of cantrip. Prestidigitation, range 10 feet, 1 object, cook, lift, or tidy only, and has to be sustained. Very simple stuff, but a useful kind of thing to have. Shield, which is until the start of your next turn, you raise a magical shield of force, counts as using the raise a shield action, giving a +1 circumstance bonus to your AC until the start of your next turn, but it doesn't require a hand to use. So Pike obviously does have an actual shield. However, there are certain situations where having this shield instead might be useful, as this can be used to block damage from magic in addition to just physical things like that. And means if you don't have your shield to hand because you've been ambushed or something, which does happen on occasion, you've still got this option. And finally, Stabilize, which is another cantrip with the Concentrate, Healing, Manipulate, and Vitality traits, which has a range of 30 feet and targets a dying creature. Life energy shuts death's door, and the target loses the dying condition that they remain unconscious. So that's just that person's dying. Let's put a stop to that. Great stuff. Then for first level spells, we've just got 2. We've got Benediction, which is an aura spell, 15-foot emanation from Pike, has a manipulate and mental traits as well, and it lasts for 1 minute. You use your divine protection to help protect your companions, and you and your allies gain a +1 status bonus to AC. Raising shield is a circumstance bonus, so that means you can raise your shield and this and get both bonuses. So if Pike used Benediction and raised a shield, that would put on an AC of 20, which would be on par with 5e Pike. Well, within the emanation, that AC increase lasts. So always for Pike, but if other people move out of it, like, Vax is likely to do when he's run off somewhere, they won't gain the emanation bonus anymore. Once per round on subsequent turns, you can also sustain the spell to increase the emanation by 10 feet. So that means use 1 action to make it 25, 35 feet, and so on and so forth. So you can make it a bit bigger to encapsulate more people if you kind of spread out a bit, which is useful to know. And it can counteract Malediction, which does the opposite. It's kind of like Bless and Bane as well. They're kind of the flip-flops. Flip-flops? 2 sides of the same coin. You know what I mean? And then we also did take Breathe Fire for her because she does have a fire spell that we cannot take, because most of the cleric kind of spells are either healing, support, or like anti-undead, or like spirit stuff. There's not a whole bunch of like directly fiery, thundery, lightningy things outside of specific ones like the ones you gain from your class or from your deity. So that's why I've taken Breathe Fire here, which is a 15-foot cone against a basic reflex save for 2d6 points of fire damage. Pretty cool. Just, not quite the same thing, but I also think definitely feels like kind of the monster Pike vibes for breathing fire. And then healing, this has a different ability depending on if you're using it for 1 action, 2 action, or 3 actions, because all of those are options. The range varies as the manipulate and vitality traits, and it targets 1 willing living creature or 1 undead creature, because this can be utilized because it's vitality to damage undead. So even though a turn undead isn't necessarily a specific ability, your healing spells are still able to do that to an extent, and there's other things that can do it down the line and later. For 1 action, it's the range of touch, and it does 1d8 healing. For 2 actions, it has the concentrate trait and has a range of 30 feet, and if you're healing a living creature, you increase the restored hit points by 8, so 1d8 plus 8. And if you do 3 actions, it's still got concentrate, and you disperse a vitality energy field or bubble in a 30-foot emanation, which affects all living creatures and undead creatures in the burst for 1d8, which means you will heal enemies if they are not undead. So you've got to keep that in mind. So the second option, the 2 action, is usually the one that people use the most, but it's good to have the utility of the first, and for against undead, or if you really need to heal your allies, the third one. It's good to have all those options under 1 spell. And when you heighten this, which these automatically will do, all 4 of these, the d8s increase by 8, and the 2 action versions gain an extra 8 hit points. So when this is heightened 1, it's then 2d8 plus 16 for that 2 action one, which is quite a lot of healing, which is pretty cool. Okay, let's do a brief comparison between the two. Let's have a look at race and ancestry first. We got +2 intelligence and maybe +1 something for 5e, but we're really not sure, against +2 for con, +2 for charisma, -2 for strength, and +2 for some other free thing in Pathfinder. We're 25 feet and small in both. We have dark vision in 5e, low light vision in Pathfinder, and Pathfinder gives us 8 hit points. That's not how 5e works. We got common, gnomish, undercommon, and dwarvish from 5e for languages, and we have common, Sakvaroth, Fey, and gnomish in Pathfinder. We'll have to get dwarven down the line. We have gnome cunning as well in 5e, which we have no comparison for directly in Pathfinder, but we do have our illusion sense, which is kind of in a similar vein in some respects, I think. And then in Pathfinder we have vivacious gnome as well, and we don't know what gnomish sub-race is, so we've not really got anything else there again, which is a weird one. Maybe I'll find some more information about it later, but it doesn't seem like she's a forest gnome or a rock gnome or anything, so there we go. Our 2 sailor backgrounds both give us athletics, and then one gives us perception, and the other gives us sailing lore. We have ship's passage technically in 5e, but we've not used that. We get our underwater marauder free feet in Pathfinder. +2 strength and +2 something else. +2 strength or dex, sorry, and +2 something else in Pathfinder. Again, we don't get boosts to our main skills from our background in 5e. And then we also supposedly have our navigator's tools and water vehicles proficiencies that don't seem to be mentioned, but they're on there. For our attributes, we are +1 strength in both, +0 dex in both, and then 5e's at +0 con, Pathfinder's at +1. Both are currently at +1 for intelligence and +4 for wisdom, and then charisma's at +1 in 5e, and it's at +2 in Pathfinder. So a little different, but pretty much on the same kind of playing field. Onto just general more class stuff. We have an AC of 20 in 5e and standard AC of 17 in Pathfinder. 19 with the shield, 18 with benediction, and then 20 with the shield and benediction. HP of 8 in 5e, 17 in Pathfinder. 0 initiative modifier in 5e because it's based on dex, which is not Pike's forte, but because it's based on perception, it's quite a bit higher in Pathfinder at +7. And likewise, perception is +7 in Pathfinder, close behind +6 in 5e. Cantrips, we have 3 in 5e, 5 in Pathfinder, and we have 5 known spells, 2 slots in 5e, whereas we only have 2 spells and 2 slots in Pathfinder, but we also have our 4 heals from our healing font. We get War Priest stuff in both, funnily enough. War Priests are giving us that occasional extra attack that we can utilise, and in Pathfinder giving us our shield block 3 feet as well. Our saves that we're proficient in 5e are Wisdom and Charisma at +6 and +4, and the others are all like +0 and +1. In Pathfinder, we have Fortitude at +6 at Expert, Reflex at +3 for Trained, and Will at +9 for Expert. We have only 3 skills in 5e, which are Athletics, Religion, and Perception, which feels incorrect, but that's what we've got at the moment. We have 7 in Pathfinder with the highest, ones being Religion and Medicine at +7 each. We're trained in simple and martial weapons because of being a war domain cleric in 5e, whereas we're trained in simple weapons and scimitars and unarmed attacks presently in Pathfinder. We get all armor and shields in 5e, again from that war domain, doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. We've got light and medium armor and an armored defense, including shields. Of course, everyone gets shields in Pathfinder, but not heavy armor just yet. And then we also have our sanctification. And finally for spells, we have Thaumaturgy, Sigurd Flame, Spare the Dying, Divine Favor, and Shield of Faith. And we have Divine Lance, Guidance, Prestidigitation, Shield, and Spare the Dying. And then we've got Cure Wounds, Guiding Bolt, Healing Word, and Benediction, Breathe Fire, Heal, 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 Heal. I got the order of those a bit wrong, but that's the list of all the ones that we have. And I meant Stabilize, not Spare the Dying, even though they are functionally very similar. And our final little damage comparison for our weapons is our 1d8 strength plus 1 piercing for the Morningstar versus 1d8 plus 1 strength slashing for the Scimitar. Plus 3 to hit in 5e, plus 4 in Pathfinder, average of 5 damage if it does hit in 5e, average of 4 in Pathfinder. Could make follow-up attacks in both, likely to do a second hit that actually hits a bit more successfully in 5e because you're not got a multi-attack penalty, but still only a plus 3, so it's not hugely likely. So they're both doing about the same. Most of this is obviously going to be doing damage or healing via spells for the Pike, because that's kind of more what she's going to do as a cleric. So there we go, definitely quite similar. Both have literally got the same word of War Priest in them. So the 5e version of Pike did change quite a lot from when she was first introduced to when we start seeing her in the show, and we will go over that in the next episode, even though we've kind of sort of glossed over and around it here. But it just made a bit more sense than doing one thing completely different and then do it completely differently in the next one. So bear with me on that, it all makes sense. But yeah, we've definitely got some extra stuff in there from 5e that we don't have in Pathfinder, with all of the weapons and all the armor stuff. So we'll have to do a little bit of extra stuff to get some of that in Pathfinder, which will be interesting to see the direction that we go. And then how the undead things work, and other domain stuff, and more spells, of course. It'll be interesting to see how Pike changes when we get her to level 9, which will be in a month. So come back end of Feb for that, but there will be plenty of other videos out before then, and once that one's done, we'll start looking at what kind of combats Vox Machina were doing, how it would look like in Pathfinder, and how those would be different, and they're leveling up to level 10, and then rinse and repeat for the foreseeable future, so stick around for that. But I've got more videos on Pathfinder, looking at the spells and elements of the classes and the combats that I like, as well as looking at a bunch of the monsters in the Monster Manual, Monster Core, not Monster Manual, and doing other bits and pieces here and there, like looking at actions and creating dungeons from Dark Souls and stuff like that. So if any of that sounds interested and you made it this far, thank you very much, and please subscribe and like the video. That'd mean a lot, goes a long way. Anything you do done definitely for Pike, let me know down in the comments below. But that's all for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.